About a year ago, I got my first ever 3D printer. I've been using it for about a year now, and man, I'm excited about this. It's been so awesome. I haven't lost that joy of the first time that I had that 3D printer over this last year. And so I want to share with you my top 3 reasons why you should have a 3D printer in 2023. And maybe I'll sneak in a bonus reason at the end of the video. See if you can catch what that is. My number 1 reason that you should have a 3D printer in 2023 is creativity and problem solving. A little while back, I made this crazy awesome chess table where it just came to me that I could make a clear squares for that chess table, and I could do this crazy awesome light effect for it, which was fantastic. It really exercised that left side of my brain and made me come up with a super fun and cool project. But it's also helped me problem solve along the way. I also made this table that I had no idea how I was gonna close this thing up and hold it together. And I was like, hey, I've got a 3D printer that could print any part that I actually need. And for you, everyone goes through that time in life where you're gonna break some small plastic piece or something like that, something that's super hard to find or hard to replace, and you're gonna be able to figure out a way to model that little piece and print it and fix whatever that problem is without having to go all over the world to find that specific piece or pay an absorbent amount of money for that. My number 2 reason that you should have a 3D printer is organization. And I'm gonna say it, this is the reason that your wife is gonna allow you to have a 3D printer. Organization. Man, there are so many options out there, from little 3D printed boxes to these really clever just connector pieces. I've used these for organizing drawers in my little workshop. I have used them for creating boxes for specific pieces. I think my favorite way for organization is using them for board game inserts. You can see here there is thousands of options out there. And what's really clever about these board game inserts is that they make it so that it is so much easier to set up the game. It could take you hours to set up some of these games, but with a clever 3D printed insert, you basically just pick up those parts out of the box, set them there, and you're ready to go, which is a huge plus. I mean, that just saves you tons of time. All right, my 3rd and final reason that you should buy a 3D printer in 2023 is the price. Man, when I was growing up and through college and whatnot, these things used to be so expensive. I remember in college, these were thousands of dollars. And I always thought, hey, that's cool, but I will never be able to afford those. This 3D printer here that I have here, I spent $180 on. $180, and I have done so many various things with that thing. Competition is fantastic, and there are so many different brands out there. There's lots of good choices out there for different 3D printers. I, in particular, went with this Ender 3 because this is kind of like your first basic entry-level one. And yes, it has plenty of problems, and I have learned a lot along the way, and I've scratched my head a couple times along the way. But there's so many people that have poured into it and given you answers online that it really just becomes a matter of time before you figure out your problem or your issue with those different 3D printers. And yes, this is the basic, bare bones, simple 3D printer, but I have used it for a year, and man, I have printed so many things off of it. Its capabilities, even though it's a $180 printer, are, man, it's almost endless. There's so many different things that you can do with it. And not only that, this is a $180 version, but there's things like the Prusa MK4 or the Bamboo printer, which are, I would almost call industrial level computers or industrial level printers that are now down to, you know, what I would call retail prices, you know, at $1,000. You know, previously, just a couple years ago, those would have been $10,000 or $20,000 printers, but now they're available to people like you and I because the prices, because of competition, they have come down so much. So that is my number 3 reason why you should buy a 3D printer in 2023. The price has come down so low, there is no excuse. You can afford a 3D printer. All right, I know that I said top 3, but there's a bonus one, there's a special one in here. My reason number 4 that you should own a 3D printer in 2023 is there's so many fun things out there to print, which I know a lot of them are silly and useless and whatnot, but man, there's so many cool things. I have printed a bunch of different toys and whatnot for my son, and just the look on his face when I printed him this crazy looking helicopter or this little articulated dragon and whatnot. They're just so cool. There's so many cool things out there that people have thought of that is just out there for free. There's a website called Thingiverse out there where every 3D print on that website is free. And there's thousands upon thousands of different 3D prints and designs. You don't need to know how to design. All you need is a 3D printer, and there's plenty of people out there who have designed all sorts of cool things for us to print and to experiment with. Now, if you're into like tabletop wargaming, there are so many different pieces of terrain, and you can actually print miniatures that you can use as proxies in different games and whatnot, which are way cheaper than what the actual companies that make those miniatures are. And as part of this category, there's a bunch of even just like educational things that you can use. You know, I printed these crazy 3D surfaces for my friend who's a math professor, and he used it in his Calculus 3 class to show basically, well, I'm probably going to butcher this, but basically to show how different lines are tangential to curves, and to help his class understand in the physical world, how does the math actually work? You know, what is the physical representation of the math that he is teaching them, which I think is just such a fantastic use for 3D printers. All right, in conclusion, I would say there's even more reasons than what I've shown here that you should own a 3D printer, but I thought these were the most important ones. Tell me in the comments below, do you agree? Do you disagree? What's holding you back from buying a 3D printer? If you want to purchase a 3D printer, what 3D printer do you want to buy? Do you want to buy something cheap and easy like I did, like the Creality Ender 3, or maybe the Prusa MK2? Or do you want to, step up the game and buy one of those really high quality ones that come just assembled in the box, like a Prusa MK4 or a Bambu Labs printer? Or if you disagree with me, if you think that, hey, I don't need a 3D printer, tell me below in the comments why. Maybe we can have a conversation about it. Maybe I can convince you. If you enjoy this video or like content like this, please like and subscribe. So if you want to see specifically how I use 3D printing, check out this video here where I made this 3D printed parts for a chess table that had this crazy cool light effect. Check it out and see what my process is and see how I use that in my normal everyday projects.